when we think of these really rigid, like fixed beliefs that are transphobic, homophobic, racist, oftentimes I think if you're able to dig underneath, those rigid fixed beliefs like really come from a place of insecurity. And so I really love when we're able to break through that in different ways. And sometimes that's not possible.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Queerpreneurs Unleashed. I'm your host, Dustyn Baulkham, pronouns he, him, and I'm currently on the traditional ancestral territory of the Okanagan Sioux people. And today I'm really excited to welcome Angie here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great. You're actually a referral from one of our previous guests on the podcast. And it was, I know, a long time coming. I think we were introduced probably back in May initially, but life happens.
Life happens. Yeah.
So, but great to finally have you here. So yeah, I always like to just open it up, keep it very unscripted at the very beginning, and just let you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name's Angie Kleinfelder. I am a counselor in the Kelowna area. I also live on the South Okanagan Nation land. Pronouns are she, her. What else about me? I identify as gay, cisgendered, female.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How long has Kelowna or the Silk Territory been home for you?
I actually grew up. Was born here and then, moved away a few times. Moved away for university. Yes. Yeah. Important to be able to come back and I think really appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I moved away, went to school and actually in El Paso, Texas for university.
Oh, okay.
And then lived in Vancouver for a period of time afterwards.
Yeah. And why Texas?
Yeah, a very common question I get, and I would ask the same. I got a soccer scholarship, so that's what brought me there. And it was my first growing up here and going to school here, going to high school here. It was my first kind of like time away from this area and my family, and it was challenging. It was difficult, but yeah.
And were you out at the time when you were in Texas?
I was. So I didn't come out until I was actually already in Texas, which a lot of people are sometimes also very surprised by. But I actually found it really difficult in Kelowna. And some of that's going to just be my own unique experiences and family, but also just like the community and cultural norms. And so I had a challenging time with that. When I went to university, when I went to El Paso, I'm on a women's soccer team, and there happened to be probably at least a quarter of the team that were out in some capacity, and it was amazing. And it blew my mind. It sounds silly or not silly to say, but I really didn't ever imagine that I could come out and that I could actually live a happy life and being accepted. And so I think that's when that became a possibility for me. That's when things started changing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's challenging, and sports isn't always the most queer safe space. And Kelowna's come a long way from even just a few years ago in inclusivity. I'm not to say that it's perfect by any means, but it's definitely gotten better. And I think when people are growing up, it's tougher too, because you have a different connection with a place than someone who's maybe moved here midlife or whatnot.
Yes. Yeah. Are you from the area or?
I was born in the Kootenays, and then I grew up in Saskatchewan, and then I moved here for university, then went Chilliwack, Vancouver, London, Ontario, and back.
All over.
And then there I went to Australia for 3 months when I was like 18. That was before I had come out. But
so moved around a lot.
Yeah, but I did come out in Kelowna when I was in university.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. So, because my parents were here at the time. But how did your family take the news?
Hard. It was hard for them and me. So I wouldn't say, I think that in a lot of ways I was privileged or didn't have the experience that I know a lot of people do have and are not accepted at all by family or friends or loved ones. And although my parents particularly, had a difficult time with it, like really processing and accepting it, they did come around, and they really took the time and made the effort to do that and to really, I think, challenge a lot of beliefs and that are really rigid in a lot of ways, but it's all they've known. So yeah, I'm grateful for that, and the rest of my family is mostly supportive.
That's good. That's important. I know it is tough for some people that, they have their mind set a certain way, but it's good to see that their love for you outweighed some previous beliefs.
Yes. And honestly, I think like that piece around when we think of these really rigid, like fixed beliefs that are transphobic, homophobic, racist, oftentimes I think if you're able to dig underneath, and a lot of people, you're not able to do that, those rigid fixed beliefs like really come from a place of insecurity. And so I really love when we're able to break through that in different ways. And sometimes that's not possible, which sucks, but
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And I guess that probably has that played into what you do professionally now, having gone through that whole experience?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think it would be hard to separate that. Maybe even if it doesn't show up in like really overt ways, it is a huge part of, I think, how I practice, my values. Yeah, the work I do with people that I work with that come to see me. It's actually I did my thesis in university, a really non-traditional thesis called an autoethnography. That kind of, I'm really bad at succinctly explaining what that is because people always ask me.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. It draws on your lived experience.
Yeah.
You're talking about your life and your lived experience, and in the context of cultural, societal, political realities and norms. And so I looked at my experience, mostly focus on athletics and my gender expression at that time, as well as my sexual orientation and how that's shaped my identity, as well as just how I want to practice as a counselor.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. It's neat. Yeah. Like I said, I never heard that study before. So it's interesting.
It's different. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of the fun of doing these interviews is getting to learn those different things and talking to people that have from varying backgrounds and experiences, and I've had guests on the podcast who don't even talk to their family anymore, and ones similar to yours to ones that it was no big thing. So I think it's good to, I just got this tail end of whatever this little bug I've had.
Yeah. You've had that for a bit.
It's been like 3 weeks now since it started. Okay. It was like first 4 days was just like I could do nothing. My body was just, there was no energy.
Yeah.
Then it turned into hives, and like Ella and I had to do a bingo. This part I'm not going to put in the podcast. Ella and I went to Kamloops the one night for bingo, and that was like the worst of it, when like my hands were swollen, my feet were swollen. The hives started on my chest and then moved around. Like my eyes were really swollen that day too. Or my little nephew, who's 5, he's, Uncle Dusty, what's wrong with your eyes?
Oh.
So I was a bit of a hot mess. And then I got like a cold after that.
Weird.
And then it's just this little phlegmy. So I feel like 95%, but
yeah,
exactly. Now, what was I saying about, we're talking about the experiences and
that you have some people that come onto the show and don't even talk to their families anymore.
I know. I was trying to think where my train of thought was going with that. Going there. That's great. I don't know. I'll stitch this together somehow.
Do you have still a connection with your family? How were they when you came out?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate with my family. Like my parents take my dog all the time. I see them all the time. Right. They've met guys that I've dated. Okay. I think it was rocky at first. My parents, I think, always knew in a way. Okay. And then I'll still remember this one day. And this was my uncle with his previous wife. And I think at the time they were living in Beaumont, Alberta or something like that. Yeah. And I was there, and my auntie was like, so are you seeing anyone? And I'm like, no, like not really doing it. And I don't know, maybe a month earlier, 2 months earlier is when we'd had the conversations with my parents. Yeah. And I didn't know that they went and just told all the family. Okay. And so she's like, no. And I was like, I looked at her, and your parents told all of us. I was like, oh, all right. And so all the grandparents, even one set, my one grandma just passed about 3 weeks, month ago now. Like they were religious, but not like hardcore. And like my brother and I always joke that no matter what we did, they were always proud of us, this set of grandparents that are no longer with us. But so that was the joke. We did a video for my grandpa because he passed right before the pandemic. And then so we never had a service. So all the grandkids did this. And so that was our joke. You always, if you were feeling low, the best way was to call the grandparents because they were always proud of you no matter what. I realize I'm in a very privileged place in that aspect to have all of our family just accepted as who I am, and it's never been an issue. Like sometimes my parents come and work the door at our events. Like even actually this last week of the time recording this, not necessarily when this podcast comes out, but when we had our roast of Ella, like I last minute called my parents, can you help in the door tonight, please?
Yeah. That's, so I love that. Yeah.
So I'm super grateful and fortunate to that, but pardon me. I know one thing I wanted to ask on that. At the beginning, I know you, let me think, how do I want to word this? That you identify as gay. And I don't hear too many women that say that, not that people don't. And I'm just curious, I find most women will call lesbian or pan or whatever. So I'm curious if you use other words also to identify yourself, or if you use gay for a particular reason. No wrong answers. It's out of pure curiosity.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I use other words, I would say. I'm not like really attached to or fixed to that. I think maybe the reason I used it was it's just the word I resonated for whatever reason with when I came out. But I use queer probably even maybe more often. Gay, queer, lesbian. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's great. And thank you for sharing that, because some people I don't want to say hyper focus on one term, but some are just like, whatever. I use queer interchangeably for everything as to be like all encompassing. Obviously the podcast is Queerpreneurs, so it fits, but I know some people don't like that word.
Right.
So it's always good to have discussion. People can hear that. There's not necessarily one right way to address someone. And it's good to clarify if you don't know.
Yeah, it's okay to ask.
Right? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But that's great. And so let's move into the business side now. Okay. How long have you been practicing?
I've been practicing in my practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in my practice, it's been probably about 2.5 years. I started out quite slowly, mostly because I had no idea what I was doing, especially on the business side of things. Yeah, fumbled my way through and learned as I went. While I was still work casually at Interior Health at the opioid agonist treatment clinic. And that's when I became a registered clinical counselor. My background is in counseling. I worked in the downtown east side at a primary care clinic. Okay. So worked a lot with concurrent disorders, addictions, mental health. So it's still like a part of I'm really passionate about. That's what I get fulfilled at Interior Health. But when I moved back to Kelowna, there was that part of me that just really wanted, it was something that scared me, starting my own practice, starting my own business. Sure. And maybe that's why it took a little bit of time. But it was something that I just really wanted to challenge myself with, and gave me the flexibility to work in the way I wanted and to work with the people that I wanted. Yeah.
And so are you full-time in your practice now, or do you still do some work with Interior Health?
I still do some work with Interior Health. Yeah. Just casual. There'll be call-outs, and it's helpful to fill my space. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. If you have the capacity to do it, why not? Right.
Yeah.
Help people. Obviously that's income. Because and that's some of the interesting parts too of chatting with entrepreneurs. Some have a day job, and then all their entrepreneurial stuff is started as passion projects, and now it's obviously the day job provides some guarantee on income, and I get that's kind of part of the thing.
Yes, a big part, unfortunately. Yeah.
And your comment around the business side of things, I feel like that's a common theme with a lot of entrepreneurs. Obviously, I've mostly been with queer entrepreneurs, but is put your words together, Dustyn. Words is the business side of things, right? Like you're good at your profession, your skill set, but then you also generally have to deal with the business side. So the marketing, the books, the taxes, like all these things. And yes, you can hire professionals to do all of that, but you also need to realize that you might not have the income at the beginning. So sometimes it's a bit of fumbling your way through some of those aspects until you're at a place that you can afford to hire the experts.
Yeah. So, absolutely.
Which Can be a challenge.
It can be a challenge, and things ebb and flow. And one thing I found in starting my private practice, that it can be, not that there's a really good kind of community of counselors that do meetups and group supervision, and which is really nice, but it can feel isolating at times. I have an office that's like just a single standing unit. It's not part of a larger shared office space. Right. So I find that I do get some of that with working with the team at Interior Health as well. So it's a good balance. Yeah.
I was saying, because there's obviously the standalone, like you say, you have, or you can be an office within an office. Like there's many different setups, or you just can work from home. Like
that too.
Depending on your style and how you do it. How has your queer identity shaped your business?
Yeah, good question. I don't know that I have the best answer for that, but I think it has probably shaped it in so many little ways that I'm not even aware of. Just because it's part of who I am.
Totally. But there's no right or wrong. Sorry.
Yeah. But I also do think with time and with kind of building confidence in my practice, and very slowly, but a little bit in the business side, is learning like that I have more like flexibility to choose who I what communities and that I want to work with. And so I think that I found myself over time just really being interested with working with the queer community, or maybe even just more generally, anyone that's in a place in their life that are wanting to explore their identity in any way. I really love doing that. And who knows, but I probably wouldn't have the same kind of passion if I didn't have the experience that I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you find, are you migrating a bit more towards a queer community now, or is it still fairly broad in terms of the types of clients and such that you're attracting?
Yeah, I would say fairly broad, but that's what I'm going through my mind. I'm like trying to shift things a little bit, figuring out what that looks like, what that means. I really neglect marketing and at all. So my social media is terrible, really minimal, barely there. I have been relying just on referrals, as well as a big one is like the profiles on Psychology Today and those sorts of things. But outside of that, I have really neglected that piece. So maybe not reaching the queer community in the way that I would like to, or I would like to begin to do.
On social media is a beast. Like I have a part-time VA that helps with mine.
Okay.
Because we've got the Queerpreneurs one. There's our Rebellious Unicorn Studios. There's Rebellious Unicorn events. Peak Pride. And then I have one or two that are non-actives. And it's a lot of work. And thankfully there's AI now that can help us with stuff and script things. And I'll admit I use AI to help cut our clips from these episodes. And then we fine tune it. But at least it gets that initial phase done, which could save us 5-6 hours in going through the episode to find the right clips and whatnot. And because a lot of it's trained, right? Like it's trained with keywords and those kind of things in mind. So it makes it easier as a entrepreneur, queerpreneur, solopreneur, whatever you want to call us, to help run the business. And so honestly, sometimes it's better to hire someone for that. Because if you don't enjoy it, sometimes it's better to just pay someone.
Agreed. Yeah.
Right?
And finding that balance. I definitely was finding in the beginning, getting so caught up. And of course, it's harder in the beginning and learning. But so caught up in needing to do enough. And it's never enough. And comparing yourself or comparing your business on social media. And just got to a point where I wanted to pull back from that and reground and just to why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so it's a balance. It's tricky.
Absolutely. And word of mouth, pardon me. And word of mouth is the best form of marketing out there, above all else, right? That's how I found you, was from one of your clients. They said, you really got to talk to Angie. I'm like, cool, great. So for me, it's also the referral as well of other queer entrepreneurs. And that's how I have done some reaching out, but I always tell people that I'm interviewing, I'm like, please refer people. Please, if you have people in your circles that have a story that we should get out there and they're in
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, then let's do it.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know we talked a bit about business, but would you say the business side, is that the biggest challenge you've had with growing your own practice, or what would you say is the most challenging part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was hesitating for a second there. I don't really know why. That's been by far the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah.
And I think it continues to be. I mean, less so and learning, but it's not, I'd be lying if I said it was something I enjoy doing.
Yeah. I get it. The business side, like I've done bookkeeping and all that for years,
Yeah.
like prior to in previous lives. And like I have a bookkeeper to help with the tedious stuff,
Yeah.
more the taxes and bank recs. I do a lot of the other stuff myself because it's just because I have so many different lines of the business. It's sometimes hard for the bookkeeper to know where this fits.
I bet. Yeah.
right?
You're juggling a lot.
Yeah. And I try and track things by project and if we get like a contract or whatever, but so sometimes it's just easier to do it myself than to try and explain it all.
I would like to learn more because I'm not tech forward in any way.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, I'm resistant to new technology. But when I think about that, it's a silly thing when it's available and it's helpful. And I would like to learn more in those areas. And
Yeah.
yeah,
But it also takes time, right?
it
And
does
so you
take
gotta,
time to learn. Yeah, for sure.
And there's only so many hours in a day that we're awake. So
Yeah.
it's finding that balance for sure. I'm curious, do you have any, like in your journey, whether it be just an entrepreneur or even just prior to that, like a real success story of something? Obviously, I realize there's client confidentiality and all that you got to maintain, but
Yeah.
curious if there's like maybe a generic way to share any big success that you've had in this journey.
Yeah. So many little ones
Sure, you can
coming.
share one or two smaller ones if you want, like two
Yeah.
or moments that you're really proud of. Actually was another word I was thinking of. So it doesn't necessarily be success. It could be a proud moment.
Yeah. I think more like really generally moments that I have with clients that people I'm working with, that there's a shift that happens or a realization of some sort is really amazing for me to see, just like a breakthrough to some extent. And those can be really small, or just, I feel really proud and honored and grateful when someone who has been through a lot and has maybe not had the space or outlets or safety to share things eventually gets to a place with me where they talk about something for the first time, something really hard, something really vulnerable. Those moments are really special for me. One that does like stand out for me, and it was when I was working just broadly in Vancouver prior to private practice, but I had some people that I would see that were quite homophobic, unapologetically, really in your face. And I'm thinking of one in particular, but it was really challenging for me. And I was a newer counselor at that time and would go and talk to my supervisor about it and was really trying to figure out, like, is this someone that I can continue seeing and continue to be unbiased enough and non-judgmental? Can I do this? And that was difficult, but I was able to, I think, I hope, and I think able to set my beliefs and also how hurtful that can be, but aside during that time, and got to a place where this person truly and like genuinely, it took a long time, but started to see things differently and was really apologetic and almost embarrassed about the way they treated and spoke about and the beliefs they held that were so hurtful to other people, and were really thankful to me. And that doesn't happen all the time. So that was one moment that really stands
That's beautiful.
out.
Yeah, because often those people that have that much hate, it's next to impossible to change how they view things, whatever that be, whether it's homophobia, racism, whatever. So
it's true.
It's amazing. And I can't imagine being in that type of environment with that person, how challenging it is, right? Because obviously being a queer person and having to deal with that level of hate with someone that you're trying to help, which in the end you did, obviously, by the sounds of it, but it's tiring, I guess, is maybe a good word, but
yeah. And there is definitely a lot of people that their views didn't change, and or yeah, and it's, I would say in my private practice, I'm confronted with that a lot less. And I think it was the area and the population and maybe the time when I was where I was working. But yeah, those moments are hard, but also important if you and we have the space and willingness to continue those conversations with people like that. It can be important.
Yeah. And during some of those situations or even other times in your practice, do you ever have those moments where you either question why you're doing this or want to just throw in the towel?
I think I have moments.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if wanting to throw in the towel, but moments of questioning, yeah, moments of questioning, why am I doing this? And I think
Right.
those moments most often come when have gotten into a place of being quite distracted, or maybe found myself really critical or comparing, lost touch with
Right.
just what I'm doing, start questioning things a lot. But then being able to, lucky to have like a mentor, supervisor, and just friends and family that I'm able to get back to why I enjoy doing this. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's a tough place to be in, trying to get back to the reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing, right? I have those
Yeah. And
days.
I'm sure that you have that, especially with
Yeah.
how much you have going on. And I'm sure that you have those moments too. But
Oh yeah, I think everyone in
yeah,
life does, right? But
you're right.
and I think I realized this recently that I go through these cycles with events, and especially if I know that it's not going to be one that actually makes a profit on, and we have a couple of those a year, and it's like, why the fuck do I keep putting myself through this? And then something happens, I remind myself, I'm like, there's a community aspect to it. You are making a difference, and
Yeah.
not everyone is going to be about money, because you have other ones that are like, as a person I interviewed, always calls cash cows, because
Yeah.
that's the difference of different types of businesses. Yours is a bit more probably hourly based. A lot
Yeah.
of what you do, or mine is, I can put, look at for this podcast, for example, right? There's no revenue currently earned off of it, but I do it because I
Right.
love it. So I get to talk to cool people and meet new people and actually find these conversations quite motivating, because it's funny, like sometimes if I haven't done one in a while and then I have to go do it, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I gotta do this. And you're not question it, but I even have those moments sometimes like, do I need to reschedule because my mind's not in this? I'm like, no, because I know as soon as I get in, start chatting with the
Yeah.
person, it's going to be fun. We have a great time, and that's where the magic happens. So I sometimes just need to light that fire under my own ass,
For sure. Yeah.
right?
I really get
So,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
What does success look like in your business for you?
I guess for me, success would look like having a practice that, yeah, it's tough because I was going to say having a practice that I had enough clients really that were like, it was stable, steady, there was a security there, and that I felt like fulfilled in my work, that I felt like I was genuinely connecting with and helping and like walking alongside the people I was working with. And I think so to some extent I am successful, but as you said, like things ebb and flow, and yeah, that maybe that's one I need to think more about. But I think just having a little bit more stability in
Mm-hmm.
my own practice, and maybe that piece also around getting a little bit more confident and comfortable in the business side of things, or at
Right.
least in a place where I could have a general understanding and then hand that off to someone. Yeah.
Success is obviously different to everyone. Capitalist, it's just about money, and there's community impact, there's personal impact.
Yeah.
Obviously, profitability is in there somewhere with a business, because you can't continue to operate always at a loss.
Yeah.
But success can also evolve, right? As your business evolves. One day it's the business side of things, and maybe the
Yeah.
next, and then once you get a handle on that, then it's something else, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's growing your practice or it's building it up so you can prepare to retire, whatever. Again, there's no right or wrong answer in there, and I'm just, because everyone has a different perspective, and so I like listening to different people's prerogatives and perspectives and all of
Yeah.
that.
I love that though,
Yeah,
that it just evolves, and maybe it can be something
it's
different
life.
day to day. And
Totally.
we oftentimes are taught that we should be working towards this one big thing. And then when we get
Yeah.
there, it's what now? And so just like focusing more on just like the journey is a good place to be.
And I had a good quote this morning. I read some of my doom scrolling on social media this morning while I was having my coffee.
Yeah.
And it was around having these big goals is great, but sometimes we struggle even getting started because we just don't know where to go. And it was all around the fact of, do you know what the next step you need to do is? And if it's yes, then just take that one step and then start taking one step towards getting there. And that's sometimes when I enter myself with events, because I'm like, I can see the event and I can create the concept, I can create a budget. And then it's like, okay, now I got to figure out this and the talent and the budget and all the little pieces to actually do it, and then promotion on top of that. And so sometimes I just need to remind myself, you don't have to have it all done today.
Yeah, reel it back in, just one thing at a time. Yeah.
Because I find some time with my ADHD is if there's so much, like a lot of different things going on, I struggle to do anything. And so I just gotta remember, okay, one thing at a time here. You don't have to do it all in one sitting and just get it done. As much as I like to get it just done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was curious, do you find there's many misperceptions out there about what you do or how you do it?
Me personally, or as
like
a
your
counselor?
profession? Yeah, as a counselor.
Yeah, maybe. I think one thing is that counseling can really look so different. There are thousands of different approaches and modalities and ways that counselors practice, and they're coming from different life experiences and educational backgrounds. So it can look very different. I think maybe with it's getting more maybe just blurry with there's life coaches and there's a lot of information that we get on social media, which is amazing, and also can sometimes be too much. And that information that we're taking in is still very different than I think coming into a therapeutic space, whether it be with a counselor or another person that's in a support role. That's very different. Yeah. And sometimes I'm just thinking now, there's this people will come and there's this, or has been this perception of, you're just going to tell me what to do, right? I have this problem and I need you to tell me what to do. And it's, navigating that with being like, that better what to do than I do. And, but how can we start just, digging into this and exploring that more?
Absolutely. Sense. Okay, I'm going to slip us into my what I call my lightning round.
Okay.
So it's this or that, no need for explanations, or just the first thing that comes to mind when I ask the question. Dinner at a fancy restaurant or home cooked meal?
Home cooked meal.
Multiple short vacations in a year or one long vacation?
Multiple short.
Yeah. Mexico or Hawaii?
Mexico.
Okay. Would you rather go watch a movie or enjoy live music?
Live music.
Yeah. How about Spain or Portugal?
I've been to Spain and never Portugal, so Portugal.
Okay. Vancouver or Victoria?
Vancouver.
Okay. Montreal or Toronto?
Montreal.
Yeah. More of an early riser, or do you like to sleep in?
I'm allowed to say both.
Sure. What's your
Sleep
preference?
in, I would say.
Yeah.
Sleep
Okay.
in. Yeah.
If you had the choice of driving or flying, what would you do?
Driving. I like road trips. Driving.
Okay. Audiobooks or real books?
Real books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the business, do you use more of a debit card or a credit card?
Credit card.
Okay. And also for the business, bank or credit union?
Credit union.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dogs or cats?
Oh. Both.
Okay. Spotify or fair. Spotify or Apple Music?
Spotify.
Okay. Do you love popcorn?
I do so much.
Yeah. I find it's like people love it or they don't. And there's not really much of a middle ground on that one. How about pineapple on pizza?
No.
Yes. 2 for 2 today.
Yeah. All right.
Usually it's people are always like, absolutely. And I'm like, no, wrong.
Exactly. That's one of the biggest fights that my partner and I will get. Not actual fights, but we cannot, we share food often and we can never agree on pizzas because she wants pineapple on it. And that's disgusting.
I agree. And I've picked them when I lived in Australia when I was 18. It was the worst.
Oh,
it's
really?
like 38 degrees Celsius. You're in these overalls and gloves and everything's taped up and stipped up, but you're still getting scratched from the leaves on the plants. It was terrible. Like never again. Either for one day.
See why you hate them. Yeah.
These are just short answers. Favorite type of music?
Indie pop.
Okay. Favorite time of year?
Spring.
Yeah. I love spring. I'm starting to love fall a bit more, but you just always treat fall as like death because everything's dying. But I'm like, sometimes you need to die to regrow. So I'm trying to
Yeah,
keep
I like
that more
that.
in mind, but I still love spring because I love the new growth.
Yeah. Yeah,
Favorite
agreed.
place to travel for vacation?
Oh boy.
And it's okay if you haven't been there. It could be just a target of a place you want to go if that's
Mm-hmm.
better, easier, or whatever.
Maybe I'll say Europe.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. And so I have some kind of final questions that I like to wrap things up before we close out. How do you handle work-life balance and self-care as an entrepreneur?
I think just by as much as I can, a reminder to slow down and to step back and check in to see where I'm at. If it's been a really stressful, busy week, making sure that I'm like giving myself that extra time, doing the things that recharge me, spending
Yeah.
time with friends, getting outside. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I'm better at it than others, but
Sure. Totally. Ebbs and
yeah.
flows.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite books or podcasts that inspire your entrepreneurial journey?
I do.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
No, it's all good.
Probably because I'm not a very good entrepreneur in terms of that side of it, but
And
there's
is there ones that you do that are more on the like professional side of your business?
yeah, actually there's one that this is weird because it's going back to my when I was doing my counseling program, but one that really stands out for me that or just really stuck out for me when I was in school and was called Escape from Babel.
Okay.
Don't actually even remember the author, but it spoke a little bit about could sometimes get really wrapped up and overwhelmed. And again, that there's thousands of different approaches and modalities and interventions. And it can be really overwhelming. And am I using the best one for this person at this time? And so it actually spoke to that, but
Okay.
then showed how there's so much research to show that doesn't actually really matter what you're as much as the therapeutic alliance and the respect for the client's perspective and beliefs, like having a really open and real understanding of where they're coming from and what they believe and respecting that. And then providing hope in some capacity. You know, that might not come right away, but I think a lot of, again, that comes from just that relationship and that alliance that is built. So that was really reassuring and comforting for me.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. One of my last kind of like entrepreneurial focused questions, and this can be specific to your industry or entrepreneurship as a whole. What advice would you give to another queer person that's looking at an entrepreneurial journey in some facet?
I would I would encourage them to go for it. And it would encourage them to, as much as they can, to not compare their journey or themselves or their ideas to other people and where they're at. And so you can ask for help and support, and it's okay to not know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's good. I was just saying that about the not comparing to other people's journeys. That's a good point. I mean, you can look for inspiration and whatnot, but don't necessarily compare because you've had very different experiences up to that point,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And you're right.
So,
It can be really important to look at, to learn from, and get inspired by. It can be important in growing, but not getting
absolutely.
stuck in the comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so I was like, the final piece is how people find you. I know you mentioned psychology today earlier, but
Yeah.
any other places where people can find you, find your contact info?
Yeah. Creatingspacecounseling.ca is my website. And I do use Jane as my platform.
Okay.
So
Jane app. Yep.
yeah, Jane app. So I do both virtual and in-person sessions. And
Great.
yeah, Psychology Today is probably one of my biggest kind of advertising platforms.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Awesome. It was great
Yeah.
chat. I know it was a long time coming. I think you were sick in there. I was sick. We had other
Yes.
life
Been out of
things
the
like
way.
pride. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we finally made it here. And yeah, it was a pleasure to get to know you better. And I'm excited to share this out with everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dustyn. It was very cool.
Beautiful. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Queerpreneurs Unleashed. We'll see you next time.